Now, Muslim faithfuls around the world are commemorating the birthday of the Prophet Muhammad, and in the spirit of the celebration, President Muhammadu Buhari is asking Muslim faithfuls to honor the Prophet by following his shining examples of non-violence, peaceful disposition, and remarkable virtues of patience. In a goodwill message, President Muhammadu Buhari says, putting into practice the great virtues for which the Holy Prophet Muhammad is historically famous and revered would have a far greater impact on changing our attitudes and behaviors than the best sermons ever will. The president also highlights the devastating impact of extremism on religion, as he advises Muslims not to allow their children to be lured or recruited by extremists. According to him, violent extremism is the single biggest challenge facing the image of Islam today, which has been hijacked by a minority of misguided elements who are using religion to cover up their criminal agenda. While wishing the Muslim Ummah a peaceful celebration, the president urged them to use this occasion to renew their resolve in promoting tolerance, love, harmony and peaceful coexistence in the country. President Buhari also sent special goodwill messages to Muslim leaders, as well as prayers for the unity, progress and prosperity of Nigeria. Meanwhile, President Buhari has met with the Archbishop of Canterbury, the Most Reverend and Right Honourable Justin Welby. They both met at the Lambeth Palace, London. The president has been in the UK since November the 2nd on a private visit after attending a Saudi Arabia investment forum late October. The last time the president and the Archbishop met was in October last year, when Mr. Welby was a keynote speaker at a conference on religious harmony in Nigeria before the 2019 general elections. Before that time, the Archbishop made a private visit to the president at the Abuja House in London in April 2018. And the Bayelsa State Governor, Sireke Dixon, has asked the federal government, the Nigerian Civil Aviation Authority and other regulatory bodies to, without further delay, grant approvals for the commencement of flight operations at the Bayelsa International Airport. While on inspection of the airport with journalists and some government officials, Governor Dixon also refuted claims that the facility was flooded.
We have seen that our 3.5-kilometer runway is not flooded. I would like the entire state and the general public, the whole country, and everyone else to know the height of propaganda that has been bandied around this wonderful project. This airport runway is not flooded. You are all on the runway with me right now. And this is the height of the rainy season. This is the height of the flood. You have also seen the height of the dredging. Where you are standing is almost at the height of some of the trees on the other side. It took the government of this state over 1 year to do the sand filling, the dredging. The dredging of this place took us almost 1 year or more. And the dredging was done according to best international practices. I make bold to say that our airport is one of the best airports in the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
And as part of efforts to reduce poverty and end youth restiveness in Kogi State, 1,700 youths, women, including people living with disability, have benefited from the Agro-Processing Production Enhancement and Livelihood Improvement Support Appeals Program sponsored by the World Bank. Addressing beneficiaries during an interactive session in Lokoja, the state capital, Governor Yahya Bello describes agriculture as a tool for wealth, job creation and economic development of the people.
Beneficiaries of the federal government's appeal project and stakeholders in agriculture gather at the government house hall in Lokoja, Kogi State for an interactive session with the state government on how to boost agriculture.
No farmer, no food.
The session organized by the state government is to discuss ways of enhancing agricultural productivity for small and medium-scale farmers in the participating states of Nigeria.
Our appeal project is coming to empower 10,000 people in Kogi State directly. This is just the first phase, 1,700. The programs are going to be in phases, and they are intervening in cassava, cashew, and rice. And those are the major products that we have comparative advantages in Kogi State.
Everybody seated here today have chosen exactly where they want to be in these value chains. And before they finally get that empowerment, we are going to train them for 2 weeks in different agricultural institutions, which includes College of Agriculture in Kaba, even down to Bayelsa University, Kano.
Awudu Idris, get set.
While congratulating the beneficiaries of the appeals program, Governor Bello assures Kogi citizens of the state government's support to ensure that the program is successful.
So long as you are a farmer, so long as you are serious, so long as you qualify, so long as you have interest, not only the 1,700 that have benefited so far or that are benefiting now, we will ensure that every citizen or resident of Kogi State that are interested in agriculture benefit from various components of agriculture in Kogi State.
About 1,700 people from Kogi State will be benefiting from the agro-processing productivity enhancement and livelihood improvement support. The program is a 5-year project of the Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development, supported by the World Bank in 6 states.
The federal government believes that the unchecked smuggling of goods through the borders has led to the loss of farm jobs, lower economic growth and a rise in the crime rates. Some economists say that border closure will assist the domestic economy in the long term, but in the short term, the price of basic foodstuff, especially rice, has been rising. What is the alternative to minimizing cross-border rice smuggling, and how can African nations trade ethically, and what should Nigerians expect before the border is reopened? To discuss the facts on rice trading is Mr. Babajide Ogunsonwo, Channel Television's data and information consultant. Glad to have you again on the program. All right. Now, consumers are complaining. That includes me. Today, I bought rice that looked black at the end of boiling it. But then they're complaining about 50 kg bag, which has risen to from about 15,000 naira to over 25,000 naira. And we're really wondering, what does the pattern reveal for consumers?
So perhaps we should ask, what's the most scarce commodity in Nigeria? Is it rice? Is it money? Or perhaps could it be something else? And I'll share the facts with you tonight, and I think it will surprise you. But I would like you to listen to this, Millicent. Exactly on this day, 24 years ago, Ken Saro-Wiwa and 8 others were killed, members of the movement of the survival of the Ogoni people. And while we need to remember that today, tonight is not really about the survival of the Ogoni people. Just as you've said, tonight is about how many Nigerians can survive without rice. So that's the first thing we should look at. Then second thing we'll look at is to look at the rice consumption habits, and then we'll look at the rice production levels. So let's take a look at who eats rice in Nigeria, Millicent. Who eats rice in Nigeria? And the evidence we have from the mixture of data from the National Population Commission and the National Bureau of Statistics tells us that the #1 region is the Northwestern region. So the information we have is last census shows that 25% of the population is in the Northwest. However, 29% of rice consumption happens in the Northwest, compared to the Southeast that has 12% of the population and consumes only 9% of rice. The summary is 53% of Nigeria's population, based on the last census, is in the North, 53%. However, 61% of rice consumption happens across those 19 states in the North. So that tells us that, yes, a lot of rice consumption happens in the North. That is the first fact. The second is to look at and to understand more about the consumption habits of Nigerians. And what do I mean by consumption? The evidence from KPMG tells us that Nigerians consume 7 million metric tons annually of rice. 7 million metric tons. But what does 7 million metric tons really look like, Millicent? Remember the story of the Titanic. 7 million metric tons is the equivalent of 135 Titanic ships. That is how much rice we consume annually in the nation. And finally, what is the supply look like? And since we know that, yes, we have 7 million metric tons as the demand, the supply today, local supply, is 4 million metric tons. So if we have a demand of 7 million metric tons and local supply is only 4 million metric tons, it then creates a deficit of 3 million metric tons. And that is what is happening today. All the shenanigans is over who supplies that deficit of 3 million metric tons.
But is the border closure the sacrifice we must make to support local production of rice?
You know, I talked about what is the most scarce commodity. Is it really rice? And the evidence shows that the border closure, yes, is important, but the most scarce commodity in Nigeria today is not rice. The most scarce commodity is truthfulness. What do I mean by truthfulness? The evidence from Transparency International tells us that all across Nigeria's borders, from Benin to Niger, to Chad, to Cameroon, Transparency's ranking is that none of these countries scores even 5 over 10. So the first thing we need to tackle is we need to tackle the smuggling of corruption. And until we're able to tackle the smuggling of corruption, in other words, until we're able to ensure that we increase our level of truthfulness, then smuggling of rice and other commodities will still be a challenge.
All right. We'd like to thank you, albeit brief, for joining us today.
The pleasure is all mine. Again, the future, is for all those Nigerians that play in the rice value chain. There's a lot of money to be made these days.
All right.